Whatever you find your hands to do, do it unto the glory of God. Hi, YouTube family. This is Michelle coming back at you with Operation Debt Freedom. If this is your first time here, this is your first video, please go back and watch my introduction video to get more information about what this journey is about. I'm gonna give you a little bit. Basically, before 2023 came here, with like the last month of 2022, I was telling my husband, I need us to start focusing on getting out of debt. Instead of constantly accumulating debt, we need to start ridding ourselves of debt. Debt was so easy to get into. So easy. As long as you got a good credit score, some decent income, you can get credit cards left and right, you can get loans and all this kind of stuff. Now, there is a limit. Once you get to a certain limit, they're going to start cutting you off. So I feel like we're at that limit. I feel like we're a little over that limit. We have a little bit over $400,000 in debt. So yeah, we need to pull back. I mean, most of that is a mortgage. A little bit over half of that is our home mortgage. But to be in even the rest in consumer debt can be overwhelming. I try not to let it get me overwhelmed. I try to keep my faith and trust in God, but I do feel like sometimes we get into debt because we don't trust that God will take care of some stuff. So we want to go and handle it on our own. So I really want to pull back from being the one responsible for providing resources for things and really trust God in this process. So this is not only getting out of debt and creating wealth, it's also a journey about trusting God in the process and increasing my faith that He will take care of us whenever we really need something. And when we desire something, if it's in His will for us to have it, we'll have it. So this particular video, let me make a disclaimer. I'm not a financial professional, licensed financial advisor. I'm not any of that. I'm just giving you information based off things I've learned over the years. And with this particular video, we're going to focus on the Dave Ramsey process. I may do another video where I talk about another individual's process, because you have multiple people that has different ways to get out of debt and create wealth. And Dave Ramsey may suit you. David Bach may suit you better. Suze Orman may suit you better. There may be other people that suit you better. So with this particular video, I am going to focus on one particular way. And I'm not saying it's the only way, but it is one of the ways. So if you're familiar with Dave Ramsey, he has a company called Financial Peace. He has this program where you can go through these weekly course classes, and you could take them at a local church or a local community center, wherever they have these around your area. And you can actually attend a course and be around other like-minded people who want to get out of debt. Now, the stuff I'm going to share with you is some of the key points of those classes. And the first thing I'm going to start off with is his baby steps. So before you can really get out of debt or start focusing on getting out of debt, the first step he suggests is that you create an emergency fund. Now, if you make less than $20,000 a year, your emergency fund should be about $500. If you make over that, then it needs to be $1,000. And I am proud to say and happy to say that we have $1,000 in our emergency fund. Now, you can call it an emergency fund. You can call it a financial freedom fund. You can call it a spending fund, sinking fund, whatever you want to call it. Just make sure you use words that resonate with you. Because some people don't like the word budget. And that's the next part is the budget. It's like, I don't like budget because I feel like it's restricted. We'll call it a spending plan. But every single dollar needs to have a place to go, because if it doesn't, it will go wherever it wants. So let's stick to step one, is to get your emergency fund in place. Now, if you're like me and you have an emergency fund in place, which has $1,000 in it, then great, we can go on to step two. But for those who do not have an emergency fund in place, how do you get that emergency fund in place? Well, first of all, you have to have a why. a desire to want to have that emergency fund in place and the intentionality to make sure that emergency fund is in place. So you want to start off by writing down a list of everything that you spend money on. So I'm gonna be using some Dave Ramsey forms, so I will share a link in the description below of the website that you can go to pull these forms, because I feel like they're very thorough as far as making you think about some things that you didn't really think about that you need to include in your budget. But the first thing you need to do is write down everything that you spend money on. He calls it a monthly cash flow plan. See, monthly cash flow plan. Some people call it a budget. But you want to write down everything you have. And this can also be typed in on the PDF on your computer if you don't want to write. But I like writing because it puts a connection between what I'm writing and into my brain. And I like to keep my brain sharp as possible. So you have everything from charity, which is tithe and offering. You have savings, housing, utility, food, clothing, transportation, medical, health, insurance, personal debts, and recreation, even including recreation in here. And you want to put in every single thing that you know that you spend on a monthly basis. And that's what I'm going to do for January. I should have done it already, but I'm going to really follow my own advice. So I'm going to do that too. I'm going to fill this out with all of my expenses. Now, if you know your expenses are the same every month, write that down. But some stuff may fluctuate, like your utilities may fluctuate, your grocery bill may fluctuate, but put a budget amount that you try to stick to every month. And if something changes, you can make some adjustments. What I do for stuff that changes, like utilities, water bill, something like that, I just take the previous month, what I paid, and I put that into my new month. And then when I get the bill, if it's more, then I have to figure out where I'm gonna pull that money from. If it's less, then I can move that money somewhere else. But you wanna have this in place. And trust me, it can be difficult at times to really stick to it. And I'm a stickler. I like to know where every penny is going. I like to account for every single penny. And sometimes I hate when things move around because then it throws me into a tizzy. So I have to be diligent not to allow it to stress me out and say, okay, well, we spent a little extra here. Let's see where we can move it. And so your budget is going to be a living document. So some of it is going to be static and some of it is going to be dynamic. It's going to move around because it's not the same every single month. Now, if you're on a budget billing with your electricity, utilities or something, that's great because that means you pay a set amount every month. And then I don't know how they do that. They may refund you if you pay too much, or they may just roll it over to the next year. Or like a friend of mine, she actually got her utility bill in the mail and it showed that she owed $0. So I thought about getting onto budget billing. I may have to look into that so that every month I know that my utility bill is the same. Now, I don't know if they'll do that with water or anything like that. And also we have propane gas to heat our home in the winter. So that's a separate utility bill. And that's something I have to account for when we get into colder months, which like we are now. Even though it feels pretty good outside, it's about 60 degrees. So you want to take the time to go through here and write down what you have an idea of what you want to spend or how much you're going to cap it at. So if you know for food, you're going to spend $1,000 a month for food and that's where you're going to cap it, then make sure you don't go over $1,000. If you end up spending less, then that difference can go into your savings. If you put down $400 for utilities and your utilities was $350, then take that $50 that you would have spent on utilities and save it. And this can start helping you to build up your emergency fund if you don't have one already. The first thing I like to do when we get paid is I like to separate out tithe and offering. We have an automatic amount of savings that goes from our checking account into our savings account, so I subtract that out. And then I look at the rest and make sure that I take the rest and that's what I subtract out my monthly bills from. So if I know that I have a certain amount. If I don't spend all the money that I'm bringing in, I can put that difference into savings. Now, it would be good also if you have it available in your budget to make sure that you earmark money to go into your emergency fund, even if it's $5, $10, $15, $25, $50. Right now, we do 50 per paycheck, and that's one person's paycheck, not both of us. Now, you may ask, well, how did you get your $1,000 into the emergency fund? I got a bonus. And so when I got a bonus last month, I took a portion of that and funded up our emergency fund up to the $1,000. And so now we have it. We've had an emergency fund in 2017, in 2018, in 2019. And we always had to dip back into it. And it would dwindle down, and then we would have to restart. And so we've never gotten past the keeping $1,000 in your emergency fund to where now you can eliminate your debt. We've been teeter-tottering between step 1 and step 2 of the Dave Ramsey get out of debt, baby steps, and create wealth document. And so I'm like, I've been dealing with Dave Ramsey and this stuff for so many years. How come I'm still between step 1 and step 2? That's crazy. So I need to start really being intentional about completing step 2. And step 2 is getting rid of all of your debt except your mortgage. So what you're going to do on this monthly plan is you're going to write out all your expenses. Then you're going to figure out how much you bring in. So when you write it, you're going to put your take-home pay here at the top. What is your take-home pay for the month? Net, right? So how do you figure out your income? Well, first, if you're a wage earner, an hourly rate, you're going to take that hourly wage rate, multiply by 40 hours a week if you work 40 hours a week. However many hours a week you're supposed to work, you multiply by that. And then you want to multiply that number by 52 because you have 52 weeks in a year. And that's going to give you your gross amount. You want to do that for you and for your spouse. And hopefully you guys are working on this together. Then what I do is, so I add up and I know what we make gross so I can have it as a reference for anything. Hint, hint, credit, because they want to know what your gross income is. Now, there is one credit card I know that they will ask you what your net income is. And I think that's genius because I believe that if all of the credit companies and all the mortgage companies, if they actually go by your net income, most of us won't have houses. And we'll be one of those people. But we got a house based off of our gross. We didn't get a house based off of our net. And so, but we're here, and so we're managing. So this is great. So you want to know what you gross, but then you want to look back at the previous month. And as long as you have all your hours accounted for and you didn't miss a day or you got paid less than normal, get your normal paycheck. Look at your net amount and multiply that by 2 or how often you get paid. So if you get paid weekly, I'll do it by 4 on average. If you get paid twice a month, you do it times 2. If you get paid once a month, then that's it. I get paid on the 15th and the last day of the month. So I know I get 2 paychecks that will take care of the month's bills. Whereas my husband, he gets paid every 2 weeks. So there's 2 times in the year where he gets paid 3 times in the same month. But that last one, but I only count for 2 in there because it still works out when you look at, because I'm a numbers person. So when you look at the numbers and you break it down, it's still part of all of your, it's not like it's extra. To me, it's not extra income. It is just that it falls differently It just falls to where one month is two checks, two checks, two checks, then boom, a third check. But it still accounts for in the following month in those bills, and it still works itself out at the end of the year. They're not like extra checks for us. And so you want to look at you and your spouse, if you're married, how much you bring in net that you're going to use for that month to pay your bills. And you add that up. Add up yours and your spouse, add that up. And you're going to want to put that number at the top up here. And then when you fill in all this, if you need to fill it all in. And then the second page, whatever you fill in, then at the bottom, it's going to be your net income. You're going to add up all of your debt totals. And then you're going to subtract it from your net income. And now this is the difference. This needs to be zero. You want your budget to be a zero. If it's not a zero, you need to move that money into your savings account. If this is a negative number, what do we need to do? We need to, one of two things, cut expenses. Look back over this budget and see where you can decrease something. Can you decrease clothing if you have something there? I normally don't have clothing here, and I need to probably eventually incorporate it, but I don't have clothing as a monthly expense. Do you need to cut out in utilities? Do you need to cut out your cable bill? We don't have cable. We had Hulu. We had Netflix, Disney Plus, we had PureFlix, we had Minnow, and I feel like we have Amazon Prime. I cut everything out except for Amazon Prime. The reason why I haven't cut out Amazon Prime is because my company reimbursed me for half of the cost of Amazon Prime. So I keep it. I kept that. But that is a yearly expense, and it does hit my Amazon credit card. And so once that credit card is paid off, then I will start to account for that Amazon Prime expense in my budget. Is there anything under personal? Maybe for toiletries, you need to reduce toiletries a little bit. Maybe entertainment. Maybe you have to cut out a little bit of entertainment. Wherever you need to decrease something that's not a mandatory bill, like your utilities, putting gas in your car, to me is mandatory because you need gas to get to work. Car insurance, if you're in a state where car insurance is required, life insurance. If there's anything that you can reduce that won't affect your family in a negative way, please reduce your expenses. If you have to cut back on getting personal grooming, massages, nails, haircuts, things like that, and learn how to do it at home to kind of free up a little time, free up some money, for now, you may have to make some lifestyle adjustments just to get to where you don't have a problem, like you don't have any debt, so that you're free to do those things that you did before. One thing Dave Ramsey says is sometimes you have to live like no one else so that you can live like no one else. So you may not be able to go out to eat with your friends as much, or do shopping like you would like to, or mani-pedi days or things like that. You may have to reduce those or cut those back for a period of time, make that sacrifice so that you can get rid of the debt and that interest that is constantly accruing. Have you ever looked at one of your credit card statements and it tells you, like, if you make the minimum payment and add no other additional monies to this credit card, it's going to take you 20 years to pay off? It didn't take me 20 years to build up that credit, to reach that credit limit. It didn't take me 20 years, but it's going to take me 20 years to pay off. And so that's crazy. And then it tells you how much interest you're going to accumulate over that period of time. And sometimes the interest that you accumulate is more than the cost of the of the credit limit you had. So if your credit limit was $5,000, you may end up paying back like $12,000. And that's $7,000 of interest. 100% more than what you would have just paid cash for if you would have spent, I'm not saying you spend the whole $5,000 in one swoop, but if you was to buy this, and this with cash, you would have paid $5,000. But now that we put it on a credit card, now we got to pay $12,000. That's a lot. And that's taking a lot of my mani-pedi money, my massage money, my getting my nails and my hair done money, or just my vacation money. We go on vacation, we use our credit card, and we come back, we have to pay for that vacation 2 or 3 times over. And it's the same with a mortgage. A mortgage, you buy the mortgage over 30 years, you done spent enough to where you could have bought 2 houses. So we got to be aware of that, and we have to make sure that we're diligent about getting ourselves out of that, because I'd rather be putting that money into investments and getting the interest coming back to me as income and dividends than to give it to someone else and they're getting the interest and the dividends and all this kind of stuff. I'd rather be paying myself than paying someone else. So with the Dave Ramsey way of getting out of debt, creating wealth, the first thing you want to do is make sure you have an emergency fund. That's step 1. And like I said, I will have the link to the form. You can actually print out a baby step form so that you can follow along with it and check it off once you've completed it. And please let me know in the comments below when you've completed step 1, because it may take a minute to complete step 1 before you can really get into step 2. So in order to if you don't have your emergency fund or your freedom fund in place, look at what expenses you can cut back on that you can put money into it. And like I said earlier, if you put $400 as your utility bill because you paid $400 last month, and this month your bill is only $350, be disciplined enough to put that $50 into your savings. Now, if you had to use that to move some money around because your zero was actually a negative, then you're going to have to move that into one of the spots. You just have to subtract it out so that now you can remove $50 from your negative total. Now that we talked about one way of bringing that number to a zero is by reducing your expenses wherever you can cut back. The second way is you have to increase your income. So look at your job situation. Are you making the most that you should be making? Have you received a recent raise, or are you due for a raise? Has it been a few years since you've had a raise? Maybe you need to sit down and have a conversation. Maybe you can look around your company's website and see if they have any postings for any job openings with the income that's a little bit more. You can look and see, okay, I need to bring in this amount of money, so that means my gross or my hourly rate should increase to this point. So maybe I should go look for some work where I can get paid. So maybe right now I'm getting paid $30 an hour, but I need to be making at least $35 or $40 an hour. So where can I go to take my skills and be at another company or another place within my current company that can pay me that, and I am worth that. You got to believe you're worth it. You're priceless because Jesus died on the cross for you. So you're priceless. So here on this earth, we're valued at what human beings feel like we're valued at. So you have to feel like you're valued to be able to make that $40 or make whatever it is you need to make in order to bring your budget up to zero, to bring it into the black. Now, if you're not, as you're doing that due diligence, if there's something that you need to, and that's not moving fast enough, you need to be really looking at cutting your expenses. So cut out your expenses first to see what you can reduce to at least bring it to a zero balance. And then, or a zero budget, and then use that budget, and at the same time, look for ways to increase your income. Think about things at your job that you can do. Sit down and write down your skill sets. What are your gifts? What are your talents? Are you operating in the creative space that you were created to be living in? Are you doing what you were called to do? Do you have a skill that somebody can pay you for? Or can you take on being an Uber driver for a period of time to bring in some extra income? Or do you know how to do certain things that you can post and sell? Do you know how to make body scrubs, body lotions, deodorants, or things like that? Just what do you have in your house that you can sell? I remember when my husband and I first got married, I had to, I mean, not I, but we had to sell some stuff because we were a little bit in the negative. So we had to sell off the televisions. We had to sell off the PlayStation. We even sold his rims off of his truck. So we had to cut out some stuff and sell some stuff so that we could take care of some stuff. So we wouldn't be out in the street sleeping in that car and stuff with all that stuff, right? So we had to make some decisions. So look around in your house. Is there extra television you don't really need that you could sell on Facebook Marketplace? Do you have clothes that you could sell? I remember selling some of my clothes that I really didn't wear, and I did sell a few of those. Do you have an extra car that you can sell? Or do you just have decorations that you could sell? I remember I sold some of my Christmas decorations because I wasn't doing that theme anymore. So I sold those decorations. And so look around and see if there's some things that you can sell off. And I post my stuff basically like on Facebook Marketplace because that's where I've had the most success. I know there's other apps like Let Go and some other stuff that you can look into. When you're purchasing food, I do use an app called Rewards, Fetch Rewards. So if you want to use Fetch Rewards, since I'm going to the store anyway, I scan the receipts and I get points. And then once you get a certain amount of points, you get like some gift cards and stuff like that. So I do utilize that to help, with the spending. It's not a lot, but it helps. Every little bit helps. So just brainstorm, sit down with your spouse if you're married and think about what can we do to increase our income. I know for my husband, he at one point he was really into working out. People thought he was a personal trainer, so he was training people for a period of time. That's before we got married. And then when we got married, he was really talking about doing that again and went ahead and got his degree and his certification as a personal trainer. And then he started training some people. So that was like extra income. And I do keep that business income separate because we made it an actual LLC and we set up the whole entity. So we did keep that separate, but we used our personal credit cards to pay for, to use for some of the startup costs for that business. So if we needed the company to pay on a credit card because it owes us this money that we put on a credit card, then we would use the money that the company was making and it would make the payment on the credit card instead of us making the payment on the credit card because the company owed us a certain amount on the credit card. So it was like paying us back. So we did that for a period of time in order to make sure that that our budget was at zero. When we did our budget, that it was at zero. So think about that. Like if you're doing like little stuff on the side, maybe you're braiding hair, maybe you're doing some of these things that you're doing from home that doesn't really require LLC, then you can, I just would use the money to buy, I don't know what you can do with it, but I know when I do a business, I kind of keep my business stuff separate. I haven't ever done like Uber or Etsy or any of those things. So if you know about that or you want to look into that, please consider that as an option to increase your income. If you are not married and you receive like child support or alimony, you can include that in it if you want to include that in your expense. If you're a little bit older and you get like SSI or you get retirement, if there's some other form of income that's coming in that's not a business related income, then you can incorporate that into your net income on your budget. Right now, we basically just include our earned income, what we make from our checks. We do have a son that's 19 years old. He's in school as well as working. So he does contribute $100 a month to the household. And it pretty much covers his portion of car insurance, his portion of the cell phone bill, and the rest goes to the internet cost. And so he does contribute a little bit, just $100 a month, just to get him into the habit of, paying bills. He's saving his money. He's doing what he needs to do. with that, because we want to encourage him to make sure he has his emergency fund, that he has 3 to 6 months of living expenses, that he is not just throwing his money away as he's working, but he's actually putting money into a retirement account and things like that at the place that he's working at. And so he contributes a little bit to the household, so we incorporate that amount. And so we look at that and we want to make sure we come to zero, right? This is your assignment. I've said a lot. You can always go back and review this video again. But with the Dave Ramsey method, the first step is to get your emergency fund in place. If you're married or if you make over $20,000 a year, you need $1,000 in your emergency fund. If you make less than that, you only need $500. But I still encourage you to do $1,000 if you can. Then you need to look. If you don't have $1,000, or even if you do have $1,000, you still need to do your budget, your monthly cash flow plan. So do your monthly cash flow plan. Make sure you know how much you bring in every month, net income, that's going to go towards this month's expenses. Make sure it equals zero at the bottom. Every dollar needs a place. This can also be found in a digital form called Every Dollar app. So you can go to Google or Apple Play, and there is an Every Dollar app that shows these exact same things in an app. And so I have it as an app too. I like using it as an app. I do that more than I do the writing part. I used to do the writing part a lot, and then I moved over into the app. The app is free. Now, if you want to do the premium version, there is a cost for that, but I use the free version as of right now, and it's called an Every Dollar app because every dollar that you make, you need to give it an assignment. So if you don't give it an assignment, it's going to go rogue and do what it wants to do. And you don't want that. You're the adult. That's the money that you've been given to steward over. You're the adult, the steward that's in charge of that money. So you need to tell it what to do. Now, if you don't have a zero budget, if you have a negative budget, you need to reduce expenses somewhere. Or once you do that, if you're still at a negative, now we need to figure out what in our house can we sell so we can have the money we need for the month. What other things can I do to increase my income? Can I get a raise at work? Can I do a side hustle, something on the side to generate some extra income? Also, consider this. Look at one thing that he does in the Financial Peace University is that if you're in the process, because the next step after you get your $1,000 in the emergency fund, your next step is to start paying off your credit cards. So some people, they'll stop putting money into their 401k or into their company's retirement plan. And so you'll end up getting a little bit of that money back in your check. You may see a little bit of an increase in your check if you stop putting money into your investment accounts so that you can have money to live on for the month and then be able to get out of debt eventually. Because if you only have enough to pay the minimum on your debt, then you're not going to be able to get out of debt anytime soon. So I know for my husband, he still puts money into his retirement account, but I've stopped putting money into my retirement account. But my company actually still puts money in my retirement account. It's only 3%, but something is still going in there. So it doesn't matter if you contribute or not, the company is going to put money in there. Not all companies do that. I know if my husband stopped contributing to his 401k, the company will stop contributing to his 401k. I did reduce it down to where they would still match it so that at least he's still contributing something because he chooses to continue to put money in there. But I've chosen to pull back because my company still puts money in there so that I can see a little bit more in my paycheck to contribute to this budget. So you may have to look at your pay stub and see if there's anything on there that you can stop contributing to, or can cancel for a period of time if need to. Most people can't cancel their insurance. They need to keep their insurance. And I want you to keep your insurance. But if you can reduce the amount you're putting into your 401k and pull back on that, that could possibly bring in a little bit more income so that you can meet your budget. But then we're going to have to look at ways of increasing your income if you're that strapped for cash. So we can talk about that in another video. But sit down, think about your gifts, your talents, what you're good at, what you can make money with, who can you help, who can you serve, and see an increase. And keep it in prayer. Ask God to send you direction, wisdom, understanding, so that you can make some different decisions when it comes to your finances. Because the only reason why you're probably here is because you are looking to get out of debt and it's stressing you out. I had a girlfriend message me not too long ago to tell me that a family member of hers was actually thinking about committing suicide because of the amount of debt she has. And she has no idea what's coming in or what needs to go out. She just feels overwhelmed and it's too much. And she's going to help her with that. And hopefully she can send her these videos in order to assist in helping that. And I want to help you. While I'm helping myself on this journey, I want to help you. But if you're thinking about suicidal thoughts, I can't stop you from thinking suicidal thoughts, but I can help you not make that decision, not make that permanent decision over a temporary thing. Debt is temporary. It can be eliminated with some effort, with some accountability, with some help, with some intentionality, with prayer, with God. All things are possible. You can get out of debt. Do not feel like this is a hopeless situation, because it's not, and I'm here to help you. So if you're having those thoughts, I'm here to encourage you. Please don't act on those thoughts. Reach out for help, and we will be glad to assist you. Whatever way we can assist, we'll be glad to assist. So I'm going to end the video here and give you some homework. Is to click on the link below, print out the monthly cash flow plan, then print out your debt snowball as well. And then in our next video, we'll talk about the debt snowball. But also print out the baby steps. And so remember, your first step is to get $1,000 into your emergency fund if you don't have $1,000 in there already. Next step is to fill out your monthly cash flow plan, and then know what you're bringing in and what you're spending out, and seeing if you have a zero budget. If it comes to zero, if you have a surplus, if you have money left over, put that in your savings and build up your savings. If you're in the negative, we need to see about cutting back expenses and increasing income. Write down all your gifts, talents, anything that you can do to help other people. If you can run errands for somebody, be a virtual assistant, just anything that you can do. If you have time to do it and help somebody, then and they'll pay you for it. What do you have in your house that you can sell? And then we will continue our conversation, because I'm going to go do mine. I'm going to go do my monthly cash flow plan for this month of January. And I've already got my $1,000 emergency fund. The reason why I was able to get that was because my company gave us a bonus at the end of in December, and I used a portion of that to bring up our emergency fund to the $1,000. So now we have the emergency fund. So now we can start focusing on, can we start hitting this debt and getting it out of the way? So the next video, we'll talk about our debt snowball. Thank you so much for your time and your attention and your patience. And remember, beloved, I wish above all things that you may prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. Bye.